Hey y'all, it's April the 24th, 2017, and recently I've been personally posed a question upon the internet and issued a challenge to answer the question to the best of my abilities. And the question reads this: is Davy White evil? Or is Yahweh evil? Is Jesus evil? Or is there a third option? Now, this question was posed to me regarding some controversy that spilled out all over the internet only a couple days ago. To keep it very brief, the situation starts as such. Davy White put out a meme on the internet. Alright, Davy White is pretty popular upon the internet. You could describe her as somewhat viral. Alright, she put out a meme. She puts out a lot of very juicy memes. And Davy White put out the meme. She said, she was basically wondering aloud, and I'm paraphrasing her, is she wonders that if her religious friends out there, if they act a certain way to her and to her face, but in secret, if she was wondering if her religious friends in secret basically think of Davy White, a public atheist, as being evil. And she was wondering if they secretly, at home alone, meditate basically on how evil Davy White is because of the fact that she's an atheist. Right? A lot of people answered this topic, and there was a lot of people in the feed saying basically no, that they personally don't secretly hang out at their house and dwell upon how evil Davy White is. And also, people said a lot of things. There was people who said, if there are religious folks out there who act a certain way to you and behind your back think of you as secretly evil, well, chances are they're assholes. Alright? This was all expressed upon the feed of this particular meme. Eventually, I came across the meme and I answered. My answer was no. It was the word no, and that's it. Meanwhile, I don't know if people would refer to me as religious. I'm sure some people would refer to me as religious and some people wouldn't. But assuming that I am religious, assuming that I am one of Davy White's religious friends, my answer simply was no. I don't secretly dwell upon how evil you are and then act a different way to you, to your face. The answer was no that I issued. Upon answering no, I was then confronted with basically an ultimatum that came from a man by the name of Kevin Casey. He basically, what he did was issued me an ultimatum because I said no, I don't secretly think about how evil Davy White is. And then he asked me this. He said, well, isn't it true? Isn't it true that you believe in Jesus? And I said, yeah, that is true. Absolutely. And he said, well, you believe in Jesus, right? And I said, yeah, that's correct. And he said, well, then you have to admit that Davy White herself is destined for hell. Isn't that also true? I mean, you believe in Jesus, so therefore you have to acknowledge that Davy White is destined for hell. This was the ultimatum I was given. I chose not to participate in the ultimatum. You know what I'm saying? I do believe in Jesus, but at the same time, I can't tell you that Davy White's going to hell or anything like that. I really can't. Do I secretly think of how evil she is? No, I don't. I already answered that. This caused all sort of controversy, and the situation only became bigger. All sort of parties became involved, to include Davy White, to include her husband, to include people on the internet. They all became involved, all very invested in whether or not I secretly go around thinking about how evil Davy White is, or whether or not I personally think that she's going to hell. There was all sort of questions issued to me. There was all sort of very long paragraphs that were thrown in my direction. All sort of Bible verses and the like were thrown at me in order to prove that I personally think that Davy White's going to hell. There was all sort of questions, and I couldn't answer them. In fact, I refused to answer them. I came across the controversy, as it had built itself up to maximum proportions, I came across all this controversy and friction last night, late last night. All right, it had built up all throughout Sunday, and I came across it. And like I said, many questions were asked of me, and I simply don't have the time or the patience to answer all the questions. Basically, I refuse to do so. And then Davi White herself even got curious as to why I was refusing to answer all the questions. She said, why are you dodging all these questions? Do you not want to have discourse on all that's being asked of you right now? Are you afraid to do it? The thing is, I'm not really afraid to answer any of these questions. Like I said, I don't have the patience to do so. I said, listen, you can ask me any sort of question at all. Please ask me one question at a time so that I can properly answer any question. I said, if Kevin Casey, if he can come up with just one question and that's it, I'll respond to it on a video. And he did. All right, the question was what I stated at the beginning. Is Davi White evil? Or is Jesus evil? Or is there a third option? Now, a lot of people are waiting desperately, very intently on my answer to that particular question. So a lot of anticipations built up. All right, regarding the question, is Davi White evil? Is Yahweh evil? Or is there a third option? There's a lot of people waiting on that. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. All right, first of all, you can see that actually this question, apparently what it looks like is 3 questions. And it's all crammed into one question. It does seem to be 3 different questions crammed into one. However, I am going to allow it. Is Davi White evil? Is Yahweh evil? Is there a third option? Now, you already have to understand it, and I've already answered this. And so you already know the answer to my question, is Yahweh evil? The answer is no. All right? My personal opinion, no, not at all. He's not evil. So you can kind of alleviate that part of the question anyways. Then the question becomes, is Davi White evil, or is there another option? I'm here to tell you there is another option, you guys, from evil. And that is good. All right? And I'm sure that everybody knows that out there. But I just wanted to go ahead and reiterate, there is another option besides evil, and that is good. As to whether or not Davi White is evil, as to whether or not Davi White at the end of the day is going to choose good over evil, I couldn't tell you. All right? Basically, the short answer to the question is I don't know. All right? I don't know if she's going to choose good over evil. In fact, I can't tell you whether or not at the end of the day I'm going to choose good over evil. I seem to be choosing God and therefore the Bible and goodness right now, but I can't guarantee for you that I will always choose good over evil. That's something that's very personal. In my case and everybody else's case, to include Davi White. At the end of the day, only she can tell you whether or not she's good or evil. Only she can decide whether or not what she's going to do is good or what she's going to do is evil. That's completely up to her. I don't know. That would be the ultimate answer to the question that I have been posed with, is I don't know. I also understand that that's going to be considered very lame. A lot of people aren't going to be satisfied with that answer at all. The fact that I have no idea whether or not Davi White is going to choose evil over good. I have no idea of whether or not Davi White's going to end up in heaven and hell. I have no clue. However, like I said, it's just an unsatisfying answer. So I figured before we get out of here, might as well go over a couple verses. Might as well have a little bit of Bible study. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to let Kevin Casey, a shout out to Kevin Casey, by the way, we're going to let him be the assistant for today's Bible study. He has provided us with a couple of verses in which he stated, in order to get me to agree to the ultimatum of Davi White going to hell or just me refuting Jesus. All right. He gave us a couple of verses, and let's run through them real quickly. All right. Let's meditate on them here real briefly. He gave us John 14 verse 6, in which Jesus himself in the flesh states that I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Now, what we all have to admit is that the Bible can be interpreted in a number of different ways. Everybody has to admit that. In fact, everybody does admit to that and agrees to that, that you can interpret the Bible in all sort of different ways. All right. So you could look at the verse of John 14, verse 6, and you could see Jesus saying, I am the way and the truth and the life, and that no one comes to the Father except through me. And you could assume that, what that means is that you ain't going to heaven unless you believe in Jesus Christ, because that's where God is at. All right. You ain't going to go to heaven unless you believe to Jesus Christ. And that is what could be implied through that verse. It really could be. I'm not denying that it could be interpreted as the decision of whether or not Davy White is going to hell or heaven, or any one of us. It could be interpreted that is the difference between going to hell and heaven. At the same time, if you look at the verse very carefully, you understand that heaven nor hell is even brought up in this particular verse at all. All right. However, let's look at it a little bit more closely. I am the way, and I am the truth, and I am the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Another way to interpret that verse is that, okay, God has a formula for success. It's clearly stated throughout the Bible, this formula for success. And this is whether or not you believe in God. You have to admit that the Bible does, first of all, it is a history book. Secondly, it's a manual on how to come closer to God. What Jesus says is, regardless of what you think out there, you ain't going to get closer to that formula. You're just not. As a human being, you're not going to come closer to that formula, except if you come through me, period, all day. It has nothing to do with heaven or hell. It really has everything to do with your life here on earth. If you want to live more closer to God and his formula for success, you're going to go through Jesus regardless. Meanwhile, he does elaborate in the sentence right before that one, I am the way and the truth and the life. What I have to explain to y'all out there is that there are people who love the right way. There's people who love finding out the truth. There's people who choose life over death here on earth. Inevitably, those people have to go through Jesus. Regardless if they acknowledge Jesus or recognize Jesus as their Savior, they're not going to come closer to the formula. I repeat, not going to come any closer unless they come through Jesus. Not King James, not King David, not any of the apostles, not any of the saints. You had to go through Jesus and Jesus alone in order to get yourself closer to the formulaic success of God. All right? That is what's being implied here in this verse. I totally agree with it. All right, and now we're going to jump to Psalm 14, verse 1, which is another verse provided to us by Kevin Casey, and that is, the fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. And of course, this will refer to atheists and all sort of other folks. The fool in his heart has said there is no God. That fool is corrupt and has done abominable works, and there's none that doeth good. Here's what I gotta explain to you. Either you're coming closer to God's formula for success or you're not. And this goes for every last one of us. What I want to express, and what's expressed here in this verse, is that it's very human to live in a human manner is to go away from God. All right, you have to personally choose to go closer to God. Otherwise, you're going to stray from his formula regardless. And a lot of atheists trip on this particular verse and all sort of other verses. But they trip on this verse because they feel as though they're being accused of being corrupt. They feel as though they're being accused of doing abominable works. They're being accused of not doing any good at all, simply because they do not acknowledge God and Jesus, his son. All right. They get very upset. They feel very insulted by this verse. But here's what I gotta explain. Every last human being, according to God, according to God's word, according to the people who follow his word, every last human being, to include myself and every other Christian out there, is corrupt. It's human nature to be corrupt. It's human nature to do abominable works. It's human nature to not be good at all. Human beings aren't good at all. However, when a human being does go ahead and choose the right way, when a human being does choose the truth, when a human being does choose the life over death, suicidal nature, well, inevitably what they're doing is they're submitting to God, and there is only one. They might not even mention Jesus. They might not even be thinking about it. But the thing is, a human being who does good is serving God while they do good, regardless. All right. The question then comes in, well, what is good? What is evil? All right. And it's like it's been stated, to be good is to go further into the direction of the way God would want things for us. To be evil is to go the opposite way, and that is very human. That applies to every last human, including Christians, Eskimos, pygmies, any kind of person that you would want to think of. Right? We can't be good unless we do good things. We can't do good things unless we go through Jesus. All right? None of us do good. Even when we do good, we're going through Jesus, and that's regardless. All right? So human beings are corrupt. I'm not saying Davy White is corrupt. I'm saying human beings are. I'm not saying Davy White does abominable works. I'm saying human beings do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Davy White is bad. I'm saying she has the capability of choosing between bad and good. All right? And there's a whole big old book called the Bible that'll show you just in what way what is good, what is not good. It's an extremely long manual. There's a lot of different contradictions in it, admittedly. All right, it's very complicated, a Bible. It will refute you and the things that you do that are bad. And this is to including Christians, because you got to understand, we all do bad things. We all do things that we think maybe don't affect anybody else around us, but in fact, we're all connected with everybody else on the earth. All right. So when we do evil things and we think that it doesn't affect anybody else, guess what? It does. All right. So the problem then lies in, okay, what is good? What is evil? How do we figure that out? All right. We figure it out through this thing called the Bible and God's Word and stuff like that. A lot of y'all don't believe in it. I'm not going to make anybody believe in it. Everybody who's watched this video right now has not been swayed one way or the other. I completely acknowledge that. However, it's not about Davy White being evil or good. It's about whether or not a human being is capable of doing good and also defying Jesus. I'm here to submit to you that it's not even possible. Right? You can't do good and defy the will of Jesus. In fact, even when you do bad, that it's all encompassing. It is of His will. He does not approve of people doing bad things, not at all. Right? And it's very simple things. We all sin every day. We all do evil things every day. We all fall short of the grace of God every day, to include the very greatest of Christians out there. We all fall short. Right? However, if we simply concentrate and we meditate on all these words in this book, and we grow stronger and wiser in the words that are given to us through this book, we'll find that we do more and more and more and more good things to replace all the bad things. We find that we are very connected to everyone else around us, and when we do good things, it causes success in not only our lives but people's lives around us. We find that sometimes we do things that we didn't understand were bad, and we realize later that they were bad, and those causes led to effects, and it sincerely affected the world. All right. I'm just go ahead and end up the video. Is Davy White evil? Is she not evil? That's completely up to her. It's also completely up to me as to whether or not I choose evil or if I choose good. Alright? Can't nobody tell me if I'm going to heaven or hell, to include myself. I couldn't tell you. Jesus can tell you. Why don't you go ahead and ask Him? It's also a whole Bible that you could read about, if you do have that question, is of whether or not Jesus is going to take you to hell or heaven. But the choice is yours. It's completely up to you. Right? It's completely up to whether or not you think this Bible that I'm speaking of is totally illegitimate. You might choose to avoid it. You might choose to ignore it. You might choose to totally refute the Bible. That's up to you. However, if you read closely in this Bible, there's a God who's described, and as a side note, that God is a male. There's his son that's described. On a side note, Jesus is also male. And so there are specific characteristics to God as according to the Bible. You can't just believe in any God any sort of way, because that will be a false God, and he might mislead you. There might be an Allah out there who will have you believing in all sort of crazy, bizarre things that don't help anyone around you. Or you could just dive into the Bible and find out that when you start to gain discernment, you will be able to do things all throughout your life that benefit others. You know what I'm saying? That also bring them closer to the formula of success. That is God's formula for spiritual success. It's your choice. You can choose to do it. You can choose against it. You can choose to defy your father, and as a child, you know what I'm saying? That is a choice. Everybody out here is a child of God. You can choose to ignore the Father. You can choose to say the Father is wrong. You can choose to say that you refute everything the Father says. Is that going to bring you spiritual success? Well, I wonder. We're going to find out. Only time will tell. However, I'm over here. I don't plan to convert anybody at all with this video, or at all in general. I'm not out here to convert anybody. I'm out here to point your attention to a Bible that can explain way more than I could ever explain to you as to what is good and what is evil and why that is so. That's all I can do for you. That's all that I've been doing. You can hate on me if you want for being Christian. I'm going to let you know I hate on you not at all for being an atheist. I don't plan to convert you. I don't think I'm capable of it, nor am I trying to. But I am going to bring up God because I feel like it's going to help you. I feel like it might help you out in a stitch. Anyways, this is April the 24th, 2017. It's been a very long video, and I hope people are satisfied with my answers, and I bet you that they won't be. It is the tribulation, and I'll have to holler at y'all later.